What's your creepiest glitch in the Matrix or unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you? I remember being pretty young, like 9 or 10, and I was the car park of a pub in England, Southend. I remember seeing someone in their teens in the window of a house looking over the car park. They waved at me and I felt like I knew them somehow. My parents asked who I was waving at and I said just some lady in the window over there. Didn't think much of it. Fast forward 10 years. I was at my nan's new house. I remember walking into her room, which I never was allowed to do, going to the window. I then realized I was in the house looking over that same parking lot and remembering that interaction years before. Then a girl around 9 or 10 who was in said car park waved at me and I waved back. I felt like I knew her. Could not explain it and have never told anyone about it. It freaked me out. Weird but happy. About 5 years ago in November we lost our family dog to cancer. She was the dog my children grew up with, loved by all. At the next Christmas, at the end of the day of gifts, food and family, as I was picking up, I found a tiny pewter dog figurine sitting on the mantel. I asked everyone who had been at the house that day if they left it. No one had. Okay, weird, but took it as a good omen. When my eldest went back to college at the end of that Christmas break, he asked if he could take the little figurine, to remember his dog. Of course, I said yes. A week or two later, picking up around the house, there was the figurine again. I called my son, and said, "You forgot the dog figurine." He said, "No I didn't, it's right in front of me on my desk." I had now found a second figurine. Again, no one claimed any knowledge of it. No idea how, but I still have the two of them tucked away on a shelf to this day. Removed a painting from the wall during a late evening cleaning, put it away and returned to the wall to see a never before seen painting on the same spot, put a chill down my spine. About a year ago me and my cousin visited Los Angeles. We were driving around using Google Maps and after missing our third or fourth exit we swear we both heard it sigh loudly before it rerouted us. We freaked out and made sure our driving was on point the rest of the ride. The rest of the trip there, if we missed any of our exits or turns, we always apologized to Google, so hopefully she would know we were just morons and not assholes. I was on vacation on Florida visiting a friend. We were walking on the beach on a perfectly sunny day when everything went black for a second. I think it was weird but explained it away thinking that my eyes were playing tricks on me until he looked at me and said, "Did everything go black for a second?" One day when I was about 8 I didn't go to school because I was sick. My friend was supposed to bring me homework etc. but he never came. My granddad came home from work and he told me that that friend was dead. I was devastated. That night I had a dream. I was with my friend at a playground next to our school and we were talking, then he told me that he is safe and it didn't hurt when that car hit him. The next day my mother wanted to talk to me about that situation and she asked me if I wanted to know what happened. I told her that I know everything because my friend told me. She thought that my granddad told me but he did not. He said that he did not wanted to tell me without her knowing it. That night I had a dream again and I was talking to him again. We were playing and having fun and he told me that he really had to go and we won't see each other ever again. The next day was his funeral and I really haven't had a dream about him ever since. Might get buried but oh well. When I played baseball as a kid, they were handing out the trophies at the end of the season. They called out the names of the kids while we received our trophies. There happened to be a kid with the same name as me. We met after the ceremony because it was weird since our last name isn't a very common one. We had the same birthday and everything. We looked alike, both our dads were named Derek and both of our sisters were named Lily. As a kid, I found it cool. As an adult, I find it cool and also disturbing. About 2 years ago, I went to collect my husband from the ferry after work. My husband got into the car and as I was driving very slowly out of the car park we both noticed 2 people standing a few meters in front of our car. It looked as though they were strangers, older looking professionals, both walking to their separate cars in different areas of the car park. The man was reaching into his side bag and the lady was further ahead than the man, with her head turned to the right. I know the exact positions they were in because they were completely frozen on the spot. My husband and I sat there watching the frozen strangers, not saying anything to each other, and then all of a sudden it was like someone pressed play and the two strangers just continued on like nothing had happened. My husband and I promised to each other that we would never forget how weird the experience was. I can't remember exactly how long they stayed frozen like that, but it was long enough to freak us both out. My ex-wife and I were sleeping. There was a small sliver of light coming in through the window from a street light, so the room and bed were dimly visible. Our black Pomeranian was at the end of the bed asleep. I dreamt that I woke up, reached down to pet him, and he turned into a glossy black bivalve/oyster thing which opened up to reveal rows of gleaming glass teeth. I woke up to my ex backpedaling up the bed over the pillows towards the wall. I asked what's wrong? She said, "What is that shiny black clam thing with the teeth at the end of the bed? Where's the dog?" We had had the same nightmare at the same time. This still gives me a chill. Not my story, but my grandpa's. So he served in the Navy and hadn't come home for 5 years. He finally got to go home, and on his way, he saw his old friend, let's call him Wally. Wally was getting on his normal bus, and my grandpa shouted hi to him. But Wally didn't respond. But he didn't think much of it, seeing how Wally didn't have the best hearing. Wally got on his bus, and looked my grandpa in the eye as the bus drove away. Later, after he got home and was talking to his dad, he asked him how Wally was doing and told his dad about how he saw him earlier. His dad was silent for a minute, and asked him if he was sure he saw Wally. My grandpa said yes, and his dad replied, "Wally died 6 months ago." I have a jade Buddhist necklace I bought in China about 10 years ago. It disappears for months at a time only to reappear somewhere obvious like my desk, my dresser, in a drawer I use every day. I just say it goes on a trip and will come back eventually. 2 things. Each was witnessed by at least one other person and both were while driving. Once at a stop sign in a neighborhood. All of these little sparkles started swirling around in mid-air roughly 3 to 4 feet off the ground out of nowhere. The group of them were roughly 2 feet wide by 3 to 4 feet tall. It lasted 3 to 5 seconds and then they were gone. No one was around, and when I asked my passenger if he saw it too, he breathed a sigh of relief and said yes. We spoke about it a little more, but there is no reasonable explanation. The second happened when myself and 3 friends were driving down an empty country road. Very straight stretch. A man on a bike appeared. Someone said to watch out for him, so not to hit him, and then he disappeared. Our minds were blown to say the least. Just poof and he's gone. My wife and I were at the local mall shopping. We were walking around in Spencer's and there was a display with a bunch of sexy/slutty boxed outfits. Once we saw them, we both blurted out, "This looks like something Samantha, an acquaintance we both knew from mutual friends, would wear," at the exact same time. We started laughing about it, and as we walked around the corner, the Samantha we were talking about was looking at the exact same rack but from the other side. We were both like, what in the fuck? We hadn't seen her in probably a year or so before then. That left everyone scratching their heads for a bit. The entire world have slowed down for me a couple of times in my life. My best guess is some kind of adrenaline spike causing my brain to go into overdrive. I was driving about 50 miles per hour, and a car ran a stop sign on an on-ramp and pulled out right in front of me. I remember bracing for impact, and then I was about 300 yards down the highway and I saw the car at the ramp in my rearview, just about to pull out. It's an odd thing where people close to me talk about things I was previously thinking of before I see them. I was walking my dog and I was almost to the driveway when I looked down for some reason, and I looked back up and I ended up being back at the road about 6 blocks away from where I thought I was. I was so confused, but my dog looked completely fine. FYI, I don't drink or do drugs, I'm still pretty young. After my little brother was murdered the next morning, I was talking with a friend and he mentioned this other dude I went to high school with younger brother had died in a car accident a couple weeks before. Later that day I pull out a slip of paper with this other dude's number and name on it from my pants. I vaguely remember running into him a year or so before this at a club where he gave me his number. I swear I had worn and washed these jeans at least a dozen times since I had run into this dude. I still makes no sense how that paper was there and I only found it then. I call the dude and we talked a bunch. It really helped me deal with the situation. My sister pretended to feed my bear when we were kids. I saw the beans on the spoon. She put it to his mouth and scooped, showed me the spoon and the beans were gone. No beans on his lip. Nothing, like he actually ate it. She never told me how she did it and she doesn't remember doing it now. Around 12 years old I was watching Megas XLR, or something that was on at the time. Sitting there I noticed that the sun just turned off. Like completely. I was real confused, opened the blinds and it was dark. Show was still at the same spot, but the clock on the cable box said it was 5 hours later. My best guess for what happened was that I passed out without realizing it, like those nights where you lay in bed and blink and suddenly it's morning. So I'm guessing I fell asleep sitting up, for exactly enough time to have Cartoon Network play a rerun of the show get to the exact spot I fell asleep at. Was surreal too. My wife passed away a year ago today. Had some odd things happen, like a couple of old meaningful pictures show up that I swore were in storage. The strangest one was I vacuumed the carpet and as soon as I was done a diamond ring was on the ground right where I had just cleaned. It was like she was saying, hey, this one is real, don't lose it. When I was living with my parents, my dad was cleaning out one of his drawers and found a piece of paper with a postcode for a nearby city on. When he showed me, I immediately recognized it as my own handwriting, except I have no memory of ever writing out this postcode, so I punched the postcode into maps to find it is a random street I have never visited before and I have no reason to visit it. I wish I had have gone, maybe the universe was trying to show me something. A total of 3 times in my life I have had memories of seeing movies/movie trailers that hadn't been made yet. It's not even a feeling of deja vu, it's a clear vivid memory of seeing the movie before. Edit, the movies were The Blind Side, Devil and Prometheus. I was working on my motorcycle in a dirt lot where I had crashed it trying to do a sick drift, breaking off the clutch lever and the gear shifter. I had brought a wrench set with me and I was using one of them to take off a bolt when I put it down on the ground to finish unscrewing the bolt with my hand. 2 minutes later I went to pick it back up and it was gone. I ran all around this dirt lot looking for it to no avail. Luckily I had a spare in the car. Fixed the bike and drove back to my apartment to shower as I was filthy. I walked in my room and sitting on my desk was the wrench. I was dumbfounded. I was reading Kurt Vonnegut's last book, Timequake, and had put it in my backpack to read while on the bus. I left the house and for some reason about a block later I thought to myself, did I put the book in my bag? I looked and it wasn't there, went back to the house and couldn't find it, retraced my steps to where I turned around and it was nowhere to be found. I never found the book again, and gave up on trying to get another copy. I think it was Vonnegut's way of telling me it wasn't worth the read. I remember driving my car to this intersection in this rural area and I'm checking both sides because of terrible blind spots. In the corner of my eye my mother is sitting there and says something like it's all clear my way. I look back and she isn't there. My mother had been dead for a few years at this point. This was also in the middle of the day and I've never had it happen since. Edit. Wow, my first award. Thanks. Every time I drop something and it literally disappears to nothingness. Like WTF? I should have fallen into the River Thames once. Me and some friends from uni were exploring London and taking pictures beside the Thames when I decide posing next to the wall is a weak photo, so decide to climb up for better photo opportunities. As I hoisted myself up, I must have used far too much power and knew fully I was about to go straight over and into the river, which was like a 20-feet drop. I managed to get one foot onto the wall and felt something completely stop my momentum. Almost felt like divine intervention in a way. I stood up straight, alive and still on dry land. As I turned to express how close I was to dying there, and then someone took a photo of me, which is still one of the best photos I've had taken of me to date.